Thank you for tuning in to Cop with Comic. I'm Brian Koppen, and we're here with comic Luke Gralia. Luke Gralia, how the hell are you?
Oh my God, I am sweaty, but I'm here and I'm living.
Are you outside, or are you lacking air
I'm
conditioners?
inside. I am inside.
And am I
But
saying your name correctly? Luke Gralia.
Yes, you
Good.
are.
And so so you're inside, but you're sweating because you're just working your ass off in comedy, right?
Yeah, I mean, moving the pen is very, very taxing.
It can be. Picking up the pen is the hardest part. It can weigh like a thousand pounds when you're procrastinating.
Yeah, and
But
then
yeah,
you gotta click it.
You got to get those pens that don't click, man. I don't know why you're still in there.
That's even worse. Taking the cap off. I need two hands for that. Fuck out of here.
I love that. Well, across social, you're Gralia ass, which is fucking hilarious. And then you're also lukegralia.com. And so usually you're stand up, and even during the quarantine, you recently did Matt Maron's show, which I think is Comedy Fight NYC.
Yes, and I won.
Did you? So who were you up against?
I did. I won. I was up against Etan Levine, if you're familiar with him.
Okay. And so are you just good at these because you're a mean motherfucker, and that's why you're Gralia ass?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, that was actually my first time doing like a official roast battle. But I mean, I grew up in a very like loud, like kind of roasty, very like boisterous, like brutally honest Italian family. So you kind of just always had to have a comeback at the ready.
Wow.
So it's something that comes very naturally.
And is that the kind of stuff we can expect from the Luke Gralia show? Like your stand up, when you're doing it online or you do it in parks or on rooftops, like you're just bringing the heat, like it's just one big endless roast of people in the audience? Or are you kind of diving into some of the nuance of that loud and boisterous family that you grew up with?
There's definitely elements of that in there for sure. I would say it's less like of a roast of the audience and more of like society, I guess you could say, or my issues with like certain parts of society or things that are happening.
Yeah, what were some of those parts of society before the pandemic, and is that material going to be dated because of the pandemic? Like it's harder to get pissed off at a segment of society if it's all dated, right? But if you're doing things that are personally, like if autobiographical stuff might not be dated by the pandemic, but if you were observational before, what were you making fun of, and how are you going to adapt that to post-pandemic?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm lucky. I have been doing a lot of like rooftop and backyard shows over the last few months, like month or two.
Nice.
So yeah, I definitely feel that I'm like back in the groove, so to speak. And yeah, I've been going more autobiographical, to be totally honest. And I think really a lot of that kind of comes from, just I can feel like my own comfortability just with like being on a stage, or not even a stage necessarily, you could be just standing in front of a fucking like, I don't know, ball pit or something. Yeah. But just being in front of a group of people and kind of bearing your soul. I remember like when I first started, I mean, just how terrifying even the idea of it was. I mean, I remember like I'd be like going to open mics sometimes, and I would just like sit in the train station for like upwards of 15 minutes just being like, do I really want to go to this, or do I want to turn around and go home? Do I really want to do this? Do I really want to do this? I mean, it really like took a toll, I guess, on me. But I'm really just kind of gotten, I wouldn't even say I've gotten, because I think it's always a work in progress, but I'm definitely getting to a point where I'm a lot more comfortable kind of saying things that I otherwise would kind of think twice about, or maybe would be like afraid to reveal to the public, because I realize, people resonate the most with the things you say that are like true and authentic to you, that you feel are true and authentic. I saw Comedy Central posted this video like a few months ago, and it was like pro comics giving just like advice about comedy, and I forget who it was, but one of them said, you become good at stand-up, or you like start doing stand-up correctly when you stop doing what you think the audience is going to find funny and start doing what you think is funny.
Wow.
And you say it with so much confidence that they have to agree.
Yeah. And so what have you been revealing about yourself that has been funny to you?
Well, really, it's a lot of, and really, I've spent most of the quarantine just because I've had so much time to think, and I've been collecting $1,000 a week for doing jack shit. So, you know, I've really had time to like delve deep into my inner psyche.
Yeah.
And I've really just kind of been coming to terms with like a lot of the good old gay shame, as they call it. You know, we're like, without getting too serious here, I mean, for us queer folk, I mean, like, you're kind of like conditioned from a very, very young age to believe that like there's something fundamentally wrong with you, you're fundamentally flawed, you aren't allowed to behave the way that you're naturally inclined to behave. And I'm not even talking like sexually, I'm talking like mannerisms, I'm talking like the tone of your voice, even like the things that you're talking about. You know, it's just you're constantly being told that's wrong, don't do that, stop it, stop it, stop it. And it puts you to this point where you're just literally constantly in your head analyzing every single move that you make. And even when you like, you know, maybe come out and like think you've come to terms with it, you really kind of haven't, because you still are surrounded by all of these kind of forces that are telling you can't be like this, you shouldn't be like this. And I know definitely when I was doing stand-up, I wouldn't even say when I first started, I'd say even like before the quarantine, like, you know, I would very often kind of, and I have a lot of like jokes about like my sexuality and stuff, but I'd feel like very uncomfortable telling them. I would kind of try to come off like as like, you know, like I guess like masculine to the crowd as I could. Like I think I would maybe even deepen my voice depending on the audience.
And did that work less well? Were you
where,
finding that wasn't working? Because Julia Jeffries on, and she was talking about like, you know, discussing Black and queerness on stage. Like she almost thought that, I mean, she almost realized that she had to give the crowd permission to laugh, because if you get up there and you're kind of iffy about your material, they don't know whether or not they should laugh. And so getting more confidence on stage is the thing that gives the crowd permission to laugh. It's like, okay, well, she wants us to laugh at this. It's something funny about her life. It's not like, you know, us laughing is not making fun of her queerness.
Exactly. Yeah, it's exactly that. And so if you kind of have to have the comfort with it. And yeah, I mean, audiences can sense if you have the confidence or if you don't, you know?
And I guess what you said about like, you know, you're doing things wrong, etc. Like that's always going to be the case. Like even if society goes in the right direction and keeps getting more progressive, even if you get, you know, parents were like, oh, it's fine that you're gay, blah, 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 whatever. Like if everybody in your classes growing up act a certain way, they talk a certain way, they dress a certain way, they talk about the same things as you said, they talk about the girls or whatever, you know, like it's always going to be like that, right? Like even if society gets better, a gay person's experience is going to be fairly similar, even if the parents are totally accepting.
For sure. I mean, yeah, even just with regard to like, I mean, my experience like within comedy, like it's, I mean, you know, it's like stand-up comedy is all just like sad straight dudes. Like, so that's what I'm surrounded by all the time, you know, and at some, how do I want to say this? It's, yeah, I mean, even though like society has definitely moved forward, even like really a lot in a short amount of time, like from the time that I was like in high school, which wasn't that long ago, we're talking like 6-7 years ago, to now, I mean, you know, things are like a lot more progressive than they were then. But yeah, I mean, even still, my experience with stand-up I've found has been like invalidating more often than not, simply because it's like I still feel like, oh, I'm this fish out of water. I need, you know, people can't relate to this. And especially when you're starting out, I kind of think, and you just want to like, you know, feel like you belong, but your experience doesn't quite mesh with the life experience of everybody else in the room. You know, it's harder to want to open up because you're like, oh, well, what's the point of opening up, because nobody can relate to me anyway.
But I think at that point, like, of course, this doesn't make you feel any better and less like a fish out of water. But when it comes to like, you know, performing for other comedians, Like I would think they give a shit about originality. It's like at that point it's not really relating.
Definitely.
It's like, dude, we've heard the straight white guy jokes
Definitely.
4,000 times. It's almost hacky
Right.
at this point. I just want to be
Right.
interested enough to listen to this guy's jokes, and if he's going to open up,
Right.
fuck yeah. So I mean the crowd, if they actually have a real crowd, I imagine it's, can I relate? But they also, they also are, keep them interested enough to keep listening, because then they'll laugh, they'll catch your next laugh line, they'll catch your next joke. If they're tuning out because it's an unoriginal white, straight white guy experience, they're not going to catch the laugh even if it's funny. So but
Right.
I guess, that's not really the default feeling that you have when you're fish out of water, of course. Doesn't make
Right.
any feel any
Exactly.
better, but some of these comedians probably love hearing anything new.
For sure. For sure. Yeah. And I mean, it was even like a thing too that kind of intimidated me for a while, because when you like first start out, especially, like, nobody's putting you on any shows. You're literally only performing for other comedians for at least like your first 3 months,
Yeah.
probably like 3 to 6, you
Yeah.
know. And so, like, one thing that really like uh struck me, I guess, was like there'd be people who had been doing comedy like maybe as long as I had, to maybe even like a little bit longer, like were my age, but just had they just seemed like so much more sure of themselves on stage.
Ah.
And they could have, like, I've always kind of felt like I'm much more of a writer than a performer. I like to think I'm a very clever writer,
Uh-huh.
but it doesn't always come across for me on stage. And I'd see some people who, like, very like easy dumb jokes, like things that, like, I don't even think I would come up with, because in my head it would be too simple. But
They were saying it with so much
but
confidence, though. And
yeah,
so is
they're
that
saying it
just a
with so much
person who's,
confidence
yeah, are
that
they
it's
more of
just
a
like,
yeah, they're more of a performer, less
right,
of a writer, or
right,
they're only so confident because they're talking out of their ass. Like some of these people,
yeah,
like I would almost get to the point, like, I've only done several open mics, one in Chicago that had a real audience, several in New York City that was just other comedians, and I found that
mhm,
just awful to
it is,
contemplate and exist in all that shit. Yeah, I couldn't even believe. I was like, seriously, I'm gonna have to do this shit. But
uh-huh,
improv would make it more interesting to me. Like if I was just improvising my set. So if some of these comedians came off as confident and their material sucked, I wonder if they were just
mhm.
getting up there and kind of, shooting the shit from, pulling out of their ass. But have you talked with any of these people since? Like, has any of these seemingly confident people ever been like, no, I'm nervous up there too, and I just hide it better because that's what I'm good at, the performance angle rather than the writing?
For sure. I mean, I don't think that it's that per se. I mean, I have this conversation a lot with people because it's just always something that kind of fascinates me, is that, like, I think that ultimately, like, how good you are at stand up, or how good you are being in front of an audience like that, and like being vulnerable, is a direct correlation to how well you know yourself, and
Yeah.
just like how comfortable you are in your skin. And I think, it's very hard to be, like, I'm 24. It's very hard to, like, know yourself when you're that young. I didn't know how to wipe my ass until like 4 months ago. Seriously, I was wiping standing up. I thought everybody was.
Yeah,
And
how are they supposed? They're supposed to do it while they're sitting down or something?
yeah.
I still don't
What,
know
do you
how.
like
Like,
standing up
yeah,
too?
well, no, nobody gave me the talk, man. Like, I don't even go to the bathroom unless I can shower afterwards. Like, I walk
Oh
like,
wow.
yeah, I wipe like a normal person, but I'm like, that's fucking nowhere near enough. And so I actually time my showers such that they're after going to the bathroom. And I still have yet to have anybody like satisfactorily explain to me how people, I could wipe for half an hour,
Uh huh.
using paper towel, wet paper towels and paper
Yeah.
towel, the whole roll of paper towel, and think, how is somebody comfortable enough to walk around like this for the rest of the day? That's fucking disgusting.
Mhm.
Because they just don't know
Mhm.
how clean you can be after a shower. It's like if
Right.
you can tell me that you get that clean after a shower as you do after you wipe yourself, then yeah, you don't need to take a shower. But otherwise you do. So shut the fuck up. And so yeah, so I mean, like, but that's so funny that you didn't know yourself till recently. And like, if you can reveal it, kind of how recently did you come out? Because I would think if you didn't come out until a couple years ago, how the fuck do 24,
Right.
but only
Yeah.
being out for a couple years or something, like it must be impossible to know yourself and all that.
Yeah. Yeah. Uh, like 7 years ago, really. Like, I was like, I mean, yeah. Yeah, it was like, it's a gradual process. At least it was for me. So like when I was like a senior in high school, probably like maybe even a junior in high school, like that was when I told like friends, and stuff, and like kind of sort of started like living my life as like a out person. But again, like you're 17, I lived in a suburb. There's only so much that you can really do, you know. And then I came to New York a year later when I was 18, but I was still very much like, I think like a little afraid and a little ashamed for who's like just coming out and starting to figure things out. Like I was in college when I came here, and like there was a group of people that like everybody called them the power gays, because it was like, I mean, they all had like perfectly like shaved bodies, like perfectly threaded eyebrows, like modeling portfolios on their Instagram, like, and I mean, everybody shat bricks when they walked into the room, and I was like, well, I don't feel comfortable around these people either. Like, I am more intimidated by these people than I are from the fucking douchebags in my hometown.
Yeah.
You know? So it just kind of felt like this double alienation almost, where I was just like, all right, well, I don't fit in here and I don't fit in here. Am I just unlovable? What's going on, you know? And I mean, yeah, it's something that it just takes a long time to like come to terms with, I think. And, you know, really, like, honestly, I'd say during the quarantine, it's something I've really, really been thinking about a lot, because it's something that like was bothering me that I didn't realize was bothering me. You know, it was like buried so deep, deep, deep down that like I didn't even know it was there.
That you haven't found your people yet?
I mean, that partly, but more so just like having all this like internalized shame that's like really holding me back.
So some people go to therapy for that. Is that is that in the cards?
Like 10 years. I've been in therapy for like 10 years. Yeah.
Good. But, well, that helps. But also, like being a comedian, it's like I think there's various other great comedians in the LGBTQIA community, and so you're probably able to find them after long enough in comedy, right? It probably took a while, to get through that.
And that's another thing too. I think maybe partly it's because of the shame aspect, but I always kind of like shied away from like those shows and like those mics, mainly because like, I don't know, I feel at least like in this current like atmosphere, I don't know, I find them less funny most of the time, to be totally honest. Not even, I'd say though, it's mainly because it's like, you know, at least the mics that I went to, it's all just like these like annoying white girls who like it's maybe their first time doing comedy, or they do it like once a month or something, and they just go up and say, "Today I almost punched a white guy in the face," and the whole room applauds. Wow. And I'm like, that's not a joke. You know, like it's ridiculous. And then I went up with actual material and just I could hear people, I could feel the anger coming towards me.
Wow.
From these fucking people. So it's just, again, it's like kind of the double alienation thing. It's like I feel more comfortable in like I don't want to say regular rooms, but you know, the standard kind of like not, you know, mixed comedy audience room, not a specific, geared towards a specific demographic.
Yeah, because there it's just joke writing. It's just
although like, actually no, that's not true. I will say I feel most comfortable honestly in black rooms.
Why do you feel most comfortable in black rooms?
Because they want to hear your most fucked up shit. You don't have to worry about being PC. You don't have to worry about towing a line. You don't have to worry about who you're offending. Like, just don't say the N-word and you're good. But they want to hear actual jokes. And if they think something is funny, they will laugh their fucking asses off. And if they think you suck, they'll jingle their keys at you. You know, you get a very honest, you get very honest feedback. And if it's good, it's real good. And if it's bad, it's real bad.
And so, like, are you finding enough of those rooms?
Yeah, honestly, during the quarantine, I mean, of my like group of like comedy friends, it's like 70%, 80% black guys. So I pretty much perform for black rooms on an almost daily basis. And I find it very helpful because of that.
But then, I mean, you know, I suppose, you know, there's probably no danger in that though. At all. Like if they just want to hear your most fucked up shit, I would think that most audiences generally would be fine with your most fucked up shit polished to a shine. You know, as long as it's polished, even a whole room, a whole room of white. Yeah, unless you know. You can't
polish it unless you know, work it out.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Well, that's fucking cool. And so, are you talking? Is there any bit? Has there been any stories in your coming out process? You said it was a slow process that you're talking about on stage. Like, was there anything particularly funny about it? Like, you moved to the city really recently, so I'm hesitant to to ask you whether or not there was any parental blowback on that. But just is this the kind of stuff you're talking about? Like, what's the? I guess that wouldn't be totally fucked up for a black room, but like, what are some of the fucked up things that are getting some good response in the black rooms?
There was one time I was doing this show in a black room, and the like host up top, she did an hour, literally an hour up top. So everybody's
The
tired,
host.
everybody's exhausted, everybody wants her to shut the fuck up, and she was like talking to this like older couple at the bar, about like their sex life, and she's like, how often do you suck his dick? And she's like, I don't suck dick. And that was like a whole thing about how like she doesn't suck dick, and they've been married for 25 years, and the host was like, oh, then he gets his dick sucked somewhere else, believe me, blah 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 blah. So then I went up, my friend actually recorded it and sent it to me, so I have this like forever in my possession. They play like, they play music when you're going up, and I did this like really like cringy white boy dance for like a solid 30 seconds. They just let me go until I was like, all right, that's it, that's enough. And then like right off the bat, I'm like to the couple, I said to the lady, I'm like, so like, how do you go 25 years without sucking dick? And she goes, you don't have to suck dick to have a good time. And I said, well, why didn't anybody tell me that? And it got a huge reaction.
Yes. Fucking
yeah.
Luke Gralia bringing the dead room back, right?
Yeah. I'm like, I've got tendonitis in my knees. What the fuck? But
yes.
Yeah, I mean,
that works for all audiences. I love it.
And yeah, and even like a lot of like my friends would kind of spook me even like before I would do mics like that, because they'd be like, oh, be careful, because there's a lot of phobia in this room, like your material's not going to land, they're going to hate you, blah 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 blah. But it's like, even if they do, who gives a fuck? Because honestly, a reaction is better than no reaction.
Yes, and the host had killed the room, so any energy is good energy for Luke Grant.
Right, like I would rather have gasps than silence.
Dude, I love that, and that is totally consistent with your persona online, because I follow you across social platforms. You're Gralia ass, and you're also LukeGralia.com. So Luke Gralia, thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, thank you.